All right, good evening, everybody. It's Steve with Real Progressives. Tonight, we're going to touch on two big ones that keep coming up. They just never stop coming up. And I guess there's nothing more we can do than just tell the truth over and over and over again and pray to God people start waking up and listening. So the first one we're going to talk about is this ridiculous, nonsensical, country-killing concept of a balanced budget amendment. Now, we had an opportunity, quite frankly, to see that come to pass, which is terrifying, or it should be terrifying for anybody that really has an idea of what a balanced budget would do to them. And a balanced budget, first of all, it's almost impossible. It's almost impossible to do anything about. Okay, because what happens with our budget, and I don't know how many of you all realize this, so much of our budget, it's not really things that we've budgeted for, right? We have these things called automatic stabilizers built into the economy. So like you hear food stamps. Well, leave it to the conservatives to say, oh, it's handouts, it's whatever, right? But what food stamps are is really, honestly, these are automatic things that kick in given certain parameters at the macro level of the economy to prevent the economy from tanking, to stop the overall economy from going into a tailspin. So when you want to reduce food stamps and you want to reduce other automatic stabilizer, welfare payments, you name it, what you are in effect doing is literally setting a wildfire and turning the hose off. That's what you're doing. It is the most asinine thing possible. It's not even really possible to do. But lo and behold, one of the worst parts about this balanced budget stuff that's going on is they always leave themselves a special little get out of jail free card for times of war. They want to make sure, because they all know that we won World War II, with the gold standard being removed. Let's go ahead and show you. This is from Kelton about a year ago. This right here, bottom line is the Great Depression was kicking our you-know-what. And what did we do? We removed the gold peg. Why did we do it? Because we wanted people to survive. The gold standard is absolutely ridiculous. We are talking about, as Ellis would say, full employment for gold, not full employment for people. And by placing gold as a backing for our dollar, it is deflationary. It is 150% creating a instability in our entire economy with the fluctuation of yet a commodity. This is the most ridiculous thing, but yet this is what they do. So the point I'm making here is that between the gold standard nonsense and the balanced budget, you've got the recipe for two absurd things, both of which have these things that make you feel like, oh, maybe that makes sense. Maybe it makes sense. Hey, gold's got some value to it. I can bite on it. It feels good on my tooth. I can make a pot leaf in my front tooth, make a nice grill, whatever. Hey, it's really good stuff, man. Let me tell you, when we left the gold standard, we left the gold standard for a good reason. When you have an external commodity, it's the external commodity that is suddenly the whole of your economy. So France wants to get its debt paid back in gold. They can demand it in convertibility and have that gold taken out and can literally bankrupt the nation. It's ridiculous. It's the stupidest thing ever. But there are people out there that don't realize that it's not like gold. It's gold-backed currency. In other words, you've got a finite pool, and now all of a sudden, what happens if we have anybody born in this country outside the little pool of people that were alive then? The economy can't grow to accommodate them, or you have to devalue the currency, right? And what happens if the spikes are up and down? It's the stupidest thing. It's a piker investor class nothing burger that is horrific. And that's why most countries, if not all countries, especially countries with mature economies, they will never, ever put a gold peg to their currency. They will never put a commodity peg to the currency, because now all of a sudden an external force can do economic terrorism on them by playing games with the commodity. Well played, idiots. Well played. So the balanced budget amendment, I want to take a snapshot of this real quick for you. This right here is a really, really, really bad one, right? It didn't pass. It takes 2/3 of Congress to be able to get the states to be able to vote on a constitutional amendment. Thank God there are a few people left that still have a brain, but they were only 11 votes shy, 11 votes shy of being able to push this out to the states for a vote. And because there are people that are handicapping our entire efforts, tone policing the things we say, whining about this, trying to sidetrack us with that, things like this are going to happen eventually because people can't get out of their own way. Friends and foes alike can't get out of their own way. So this, thankfully, did not come to pass. It didn't come to pass. And we can all be grateful for that. But bottom line is that the more we talk about these things, the more it should awaken all of you. All of you should begin to understand that whenever you back a currency with a commodity, you have put an external constraint, as L. Randall Wray would say, on the currency. And now you have limited your policy space. So imagine this. When you want to say, I want to have health care for all, when you say, I want to have green energy, when you say you want to get rid of student debt, when you say you want to do all these things, guess what? You can't do it now. You've literally shot all of us in the foot. You've probably put a bunch of poor people into the grave early by eliminating our ability to serve their needs. The gold standard's a shameful thing. And those that support it are supporting a shameful thing. It is absolutely aberrant to even consider the gold standard as an option in a modern economy. It completely makes it so that we can't do anything. Every single time we've done something incredible in this country, we have removed the gold peg. Every single time. And yet these people running around thinking that if they chew on gold, they somehow or another have a better currency. It's ridiculous. It is absolutely worthless. The balanced budget amendment, let's talk about that. If enough states get together and enough people vote for it, they can pass a balanced budget. It won't be truly balanced. But what do? In order to balance a budget, what do they have to do? They've got to make tough choices, right? Tough choices that are artificial constraints that have no real value. They're nonsense. It's politics. But now all of a sudden, they can always cut services. They can always cut and raise taxes. They can always limit the 99%'s buying capabilities, their buying power. But it literally does nothing for our country because we create our own currency. What this does is it allows the wealthy to truly control the nation. And it leaves the little people really, really bad off. The problem with our currency today is not our currency at all. It's the use of it. It is the lack of understanding of it. It is the people's lack of understanding of it. And it is the oligarchs' power of understanding it that allows them to siphon out real resources, real labor from our economy, from the GDP, and leave us borrowing, and falling on our faces in destitution. That has nothing to do with our currency. It has everything to do with our ignorance. It has everything to do with their knowledge as they purposely try to expand the gap. The less buying power we have organically from our own paychecks, the more we have to depend on private credit, which makes Wall Street happy, which makes the financiers happy, which makes all the banksters happy. Do you see why this addiction to reducing the deficit, eliminating the debt, all this other absolutely economically illiterate gibberish is so lethal. I want to show you something. I've shown this before. This right here is every single time we've tried to reduce the debt over and over and over again. This right here shows you something very important. This right here shows you that every single time someone wanted to pay off the debt, what happened? We had a major depression. We had a major depression, yet people want to reduce the debt. They want to reduce the deficit. Why? Why do these people still have any credibility? Why do we allow them to go unscathed as they push for things that are lethal to your kids, that are lethal to our economy, that are lethal to the people that are sick in this nation, to the people that are least able to absorb cuts in spending? Why is that? Why do we allow them to retain their dignity? Why do we not use them as the new and improved bad guys? Why are we not targeting them? Why are we allowing the false right-left paradigm of the Democrats and Republicans when they both talk about reducing the deficit? They both talk about reducing the debt. They both talk about making tough choices. They both act like a country that creates its own currency is somehow or another financially constrained. Why do we allow these people to maintain any sense of self-esteem? Why do we allow them to harm us? Folks, I'm telling you right now, the more these people come out of the woodworks, the more these people say these things, the more you have to look at your children and know they're in grave danger. The more you see people distracting from these things, the more you see people not paying attention to these things, the more you see them say stupid things like cultish. You know your children are unsafe. You know they're unsafe from predators that want to destroy anyone trying to leave the crab barrel. You ever seen the way crabs pull each other back down in the barrel when someone's trying to get out and over? They try and make sure everybody dies in the boiling pot. That, my friends, is what happens in our movement far too often. Far too often, people don't understand, so they would rather pull you back into the boiling water and let you die than take a minute to learn for themselves. I don't point my finger too much at the Republicans anymore, and you know why that is? Because if progressives and independents pull together, they make up the biggest voting bloc of them all. There's no excuse for us to ever support people that want to go to the gold standard. There's no excuse whatsoever for us to ever back people that want to reduce the debt or reduce the deficit. There is no excuse whatsoever to support people when it comes to Congress, when it comes to the Senate, when it comes to the town crier or the dog catcher that want to reduce the federal debt or deficit. If they want to balance the budget, we should know immediately they're a danger to our families. I don't care whether they're Democrat or Republican. They are literally a danger to society. They're a danger to everything that you care about. They're a danger to an economy that can absolutely bring about equality for the people. They're a danger for eliminating unemployment. They're a danger for expanding Social Security. They're a danger for building out our nation's infrastructure. They're a danger to our planet for eliminating our ability to deal with climate change and climate disasters. They are a danger to everything we hold near and dear. We keep looking at Russia. We keep looking at all these other boogeymen around the world when the boogeyman is right here in our own backyard. And that boogeyman may not even be the other guy. It may be in our camp. When you have people that don't bother learning this stuff, they allow other candidates to slip through. When you have people that don't bother learning this stuff, they act like you're cultish for demanding that they're economically literate. They act like you're cultish for not falling in line because they consider their version of truth, which has nothing to do with the truth, to be worth following versus the actual truth, which is very clear, as I've shown you. Reducing debt, reducing deficits. This right here, my friends, is how we all struggle, how people start hanging themselves, how people end up freaking committing suicide from unemployment, how people die from a lack of health care. This right here is your balanced budget amendment, people. This right here is your reduce the deficit, people. And, my favorite one is when the people sit there and try to say something like, well, it's just a theory. And I got to tell you right here, MMT ain't just a theory, baby. MMT is not much theoretical, and MMT is not much new. MMT has been around for a long time. We just didn't know it. We've been sitting in the shadows without realizing it for an awful long time. And it's because of that I come on as often as I do for all the years that I have, and will continue as long as I can get it out there. It's extremely depressing to know that the 2018 elections are coming. And as much work as we've done, we've got so much more work to do. You're going to elect a new crop of senators and congressmen, many of which are economically illiterate, many of which would push for a balanced budget, many of which would sign on to reducing debts and deficits, many of which would even vote for going back on the gold standard because they don't know better, because they hung out one too many nights at the fireside hearing myths and legends. I tell you this as somebody who once believed that garbage. Anytime you want to know how the other side thinks, talk to somebody who once was on the other side and who has escaped from it. That would be me at this point. I had once been a Republican. I had once been a libertarian. Passed through the Dems and full-blown progressive now. Thing is, when you understand economics, when you understand an efficient economy, you do different things than you did before. You don't allow the parties to tell you what's going on because you're smarter than them. You know more than them. And you refuse to let them guide you down a path that won't take you to the right place. And you know what? You know how when you really know you care is when you talk to your own kind and you tell them that they're doing wrong. And you tell them, hey guys, gals, if we don't get this right, the planet won't survive our screw-ups. Our kids won't survive our screw-ups. So next time you see someone talking about a balanced budget amendment, they're talking about austerity. They're talking about cutting spending. They're talking about raising taxes. They're talking about destroying the economy artificially for no reason whatsoever. MMT, or modern monetary theory, suggests that we should have a balanced economy. And that balanced economy should come from efficient use and sharing and distribution of real resources. And that should be done with an inflation constraint, not a budget constraint. And that should be done by instituting a federal job guarantee as the wage floor to provide a buffer stock of employed employees versus unemployed. To quote Fidel, you never see the price of corn drop to zero, but yet you see the price of labor for unemployed people drop to zero. Why do we have such screwed up priorities? Why do we keep hearkening back to balanced budget amendments? Why do we keep hearkening back to reducing debt and deficits? Why do we keep wanting to go back to the very, very restrictive, destructive gold standard? Why is it that we refuse to win? Questions you need to ask yourself as you get ready to vote and as you get ready to campaign for people. If those candidates don't understand economics, do not support them. Go to them, talk to them, teach them. Because the very existence of our children, the planet, the survivability of the planet is dependent on the efficient use of resources and having an economy that allows everyone freedom. I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives. Have a great night, everyone.